Hello everyone, welcome to Programming Cradle. Today in this video I'll show you how to use Google Colab. So why Google Colab is a big thing? It surely is because if you want to learn data science, you will need a higher spec laptop, and these machines are very costly and not everybody can afford it. So if you are having a laptop with 8 GB or less, it's a good idea to use Google Colab because they provide you 12 GB of RAM and 107 GB of storage. So in my opinion, this storage and RAM is quite enough to learn data science. And if you are having a laptop with at least 4 GB of RAM, you can easily use Google Colab on your browser. And in my opinion, if you are someone who wants to build something on your own, or if you want to have your own company, it's a good idea to buy a new laptop. But if you are just getting started and if you want to learn for now, you can surely use Google Colab. It's completely free. Of course, it has a pro version also, but we will talk about that when we move further in the video. So now with that being said, let me show you how to use Google Colab. But before moving further, if you are new here or if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead, subscribe to the channel and also hit that bell icon so that you get notified each time when our video goes live. And also, if this video ends up helping you in any way, please give it a thumbs up. It keeps me motivated to make such videos, and it takes quite a lot of time and effort to make such videos. So but for you it just takes a second to hit that subscribe button and like, and that is all what I am asking from you. So please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and if you think this video will help your friends and colleagues, you can share with them as well. And if you have any suggestion or any query, you can let me know in the comment section. So now that has been said, let me take you to the browser and let's start working on Google Colab. To open Google Colab, all you need to do is search Google Colab on your favorite browser, and you can just click the first link and it will take you to this page. So here it will show you all the recent files that has been opened, and if you haven't opened this before, this will be empty for you. And there are various ways how you can import your new IPython notebook. So here you can see the recent ones, and in this tab you will have some examples like some basic tutorials on how to do various tasks. You can go through them if you want to learn more, and you can also import it from your Google Drive. So in my Google Drive I have these files. It will show you all the files, all the IPython notebooks, and also if you link your GitHub, you can push or pull from GitHub as well. And if you have it on your system, you can upload it from this upload tab. But for now let's cancel this and let's see this introductory IPython notebook which you get when you first come to the Google Colab. So this is basically a documentation to show you what all you can do in Google Colab. And after watching this video, you probably won't have to look at this documentation, but this is a very in-depth documentation. So in case you get stuck somewhere, you can always come here, or the better way is simply search in Google, so you will get your result. Now let's start our tutorial with the notebook which you already have. So for this tutorial I will open this Colab tutorial, and we'll be using that. And before moving with the tasks which you can do with Google Colab, I'll show you some of the basic settings. So when you see here this gear icon, this is the settings where you can do all the settings. And I personally don't like white background. I like to work in dark theme, so you can change that into the side setting. So here you can have this dark mode, and also there are some other settings which you can see, and they are pretty much self-explanatory. So that is the thing. And also you can change the font size and all those things. and like I said, it has a pro version where you get faster GPUs and longer runtime. The runtime which you get in free version is, if you leave your system idle for 90 minutes, your session will expire, and after 12 hours it will automatically reallocate you new resources. So that is something which you need to see, and that is the only limitation that I am facing right now. So that is something which you need to keep in mind. And it will also give you more memory, like I think it gives you a 24 GB on the premium version or the pro version. And but the sad part is it is available only for US and Canada people, so for us it is not there. We are poor people. But that's okay. To learn, 12 GB of RAM and 107 GB of storage is enough. And in miscellaneous you have this Corgi and Kitty mode. If you don't like this distraction, you can turn it off, but I like animals, so I keep these modes on. And now you can click save. So now this is in dark mode and I like it. And now that we have seen settings, there are some things which you can see here, like if you click on this drop down arrow, you can find which runtime you want to connect. So this is the hosted runtime which will use the resources from Google, and this is the local runtime. So if you have your system with very good specification, you can connect to the local runtime, but if you have a good specification, you can easily use Jupyter Notebook on your system. You don't really have to use Google Colab. So most people use hosted runtime, and this is what I would suggest you. And to start executing your program, you will need to connect to this, and it will allocate you some of the memory and storage. So yeah, that is the thing. And also there are few tabs here, and almost everything is self-explanatory, but what I would like to talk about is this runtime tab, because it has quite a lot of options. And first let's see what is change runtime type. So here you will have access to GPU and TPU. GPU is graphical processing unit and TPU is tensor processing unit. So if you select one, let's say we want to use GPU, so it says to get the most out of Colab, avoid using a GPU unless you need one. So if you are not using any deep learning algorithm on some heavy image data set, it's better to turn it off. And for normal machine learning algorithms, you can simply use it without any hardware accelerator, because it will work much better. If you want to know more, you can always click on the link and you can learn more. So for now I don't want to use it, so I will just leave it as it is. And for in runtime, yeah, also this Google Colab or Jupyter Notebook is very different from other usual IDEs or text editors, for example VS Code, Eclipse or Sublime Text or PyCharm, because there we always run all the code at once, so every instruction is executed. But here you can execute a part of instruction alone. So let's say you are you have initialized some variable in one cell and you are updating that variable in the other cell. So it's sometimes what you do is, if you see some logic is wrong, you will execute your variable updated cell, and you will forget to execute your initialization cell. So what it will do is it will update on top of the previous value. So it might lead to some other error, and you will be confused why this is happening, because we are not used to this, and it is very normal. I have seen many people doing this. Let me show you an example for now, a very small example. So let's say I want to initialize a list in this cell, and I will update it in the next cell, like I'll just append something. Let's say I'll append hi, and let's print our list. and when you execute it, you realize you don't want hi, you want hello. So you updated your list with hello and you executed it, and you saw it is having a previous value and the new value as well. So you will be confused why this is happening, because you are not used to it. This is very simple and small code, so you know what is the problem. All you need to do is run this initialization cell, and again run this, it will work perfectly fine. But if you are having some thousands and thousands of rows or elements in your list, and you want to perform some application, and then you updated your logic and you realize that it is not working as expected, so you will be confused and you will lose a lot of time in debugging that, where you don't really have any error in your logic, it's just the mode of execution. So that is something what I wanted to tell you, and I have seen many people facing this issue, and they spent quite a lot of time in this and they wasted so much time. All they needed to do was run everything at like they can use run all, so it will run everything right from the first cell to the last cell in the sequence they are arranged. But this is not very ideal all the time, because let's say you have a data set with 1 lakh rows and it is a text data, so you are vectorizing it or you are doing any processing, it can be anything which takes quite a lot of time. So if you do run all the time, it will take too much time. So what you can do is you can go to this particular cell where you are initializing your variable, and you can do run after. So what it will do is run this cell, or it will run all the cells after this particular selected cell. So this is what you can do, and the rest everything is self-explanatory, you can see it. And restart runtime or restart and run all, it will clear your memory and it will delete everything from the memory. Like if you have a data set uploaded on your notebook session, it will remove that also, and it will clear all the variables. So that is something you need to keep in mind. Now let me show you, and the benefit of using Google Colab is you don't really need to set up anything, because it keeps check on every packages and everything which is needed for data science. So basically it has all the basic packages you need, and if you want to install some package, you can install on your own. I'll show you that also. Now let's talk about some of the text formatting which you can use in Google Colab or in Jupyter Notebook. So you can always use these tabs on the top, but if you are someone who wants to use these special symbols, you can use these as well. So if you want to give heading, you can use hash. So if you increase the number of hash, your text will get smaller. So if you see this first line, it has 2 hashes, and the text is a little bigger than the second line which has 3 hashes. So yeah, you can give heading by specifying hash in front of the statement. And if you want to make your text bold, you can use 2 asterisks in front and at the end to whatever text you want to get in bold. So as you can see here, it is in bold. And if you want a horizontal line, you can use 3 asterisks. It gives you this horizontal line. And if you want your text to be italic, you can enclose it in underscores. It will give you an italic font. And if you can also use mathematical symbols, like you can see here, it shows you in a mathematical form. It uses a latex. I'll also show you something else. Let's say we want to give under root 5, so we'll give sqrt 5 and we'll enclose it in $. And to run it shows you in a real time, so you can see here, oh, it is already there, I didn't see it. Okay. So yeah, this is what you can do for mathematical. There are many things. This tutorial is not for latex, so if you want to learn more about latex, you can simply Google, or you will find a tutorial on the Welcome Collaboratory notebook also, so you can check out there as well. And you can also color your text, so it also uses the HTML tag, like I'm here using font tab. So this is something which is very good, you can do. And if you want to indent your text with this little bar in front, it is called something, but I'm not able to recall it right now. If you know it, please let us know in the comment section. It will be helpful for others and for me as well. So yeah, hi, how are you, what's going on? Please let me know in the comment section. So yeah, that is the thing. And if you want to have bullets, you can use from here also, or you can simply put a hyphen in front and you can have this bullet points. And if you want sub bullet, you can give a tab and then simply use hyphen and it will give you this sub bullet. And if you want numbers, you can use 1.1 and 1.2, first point, second point. So that is something what you can do. And also you can use it from here as well. So to execute this cell, all you need to do is press shift enter and you will move on to the next cell. So control enter executes that particular cell and stays in that cell, and shift enter execute the selected cell and it moves on to the next cell. Now let's see how to work with a data set. So there are multiple ways to import your data. So first is uploading the data set to your notebook session, and the second one is uploading it to Google Drive, and you can use it from there. So let's first see how to upload it to your system or the session and use it from there. So to do that, you see this upload symbol, so you can click on that and it will open the directory from your system. You can select any directory which you want from where you want to import your data set, and you can simply import it. So it gives you the warning reminder, upload file will get deleted when this runtime will be runtime is recycled. So this is something you need to keep in mind. So every time your session expires, you will have to upload this data again and again. So in case you have a data which is very large, like GBs of data, it's a better idea to upload it on your Google Drive and use it from there, because uploading it again and again, it is time consuming and it consumes your data as well if you have a limited data. So now that we have uploaded in the session, let's execute this particular cell, and you can see that the data set is uploaded. I have uploaded this iris data set. This is like a hello world data set for machine learning. So yeah, I use it because it is small. You can see here it is imported successfully. And now if I will execute this one, which is loading from the drive, it will give me an error because I haven't mounted the drive as of now. So to mount a drive, you can also write a code, but the simple way is you can simply come here and click on this. It will mount the drive here, and it will show it here as a drive folder, as you can see here. So I have already logged into my account, so it didn't ask me anything. If you haven't logged in, it will ask you to log in. It is fairly very easy, so you can do that. And now if I execute this particular cell, it will show you how you can the exactly same thing which is there. So these are the two ways you can import your data. And now at last, let's see how you can install your packages which is not there in the Google Colab. So you can all you need to do is you need to execute that command which you will execute on your command prompt by appending this exclamation mark in front. So you can run all the commands just like for example, if you want to list all the files in your directory, you can use ls command just like you use it on your command prompt. You can use it here by appending this exclamation mark here. So yeah, this is what this is all about this video. I think this will be more than enough for you to get started with Google Colab. And if you need something else, if you want to know more about Google Colab, if you have some specific question, you can ask me in the comment section. I will try to help you with that. And yeah, so with this, and also you can connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have some questions, you can ask me there. And also you can connect with me on GitHub. Links will be in the description. And if you haven't downloaded data science notes, you can download data science notes. And also you can join Telegram group where everybody is helping each other, and they are sharing their experiences if they went to some interview. So yeah, it will be very helpful for you. And so this is it for this video. Hope to see you in the next video, and happy learning. See you.